Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a very special guest. His name is Alan R. Warren. He is a true crime author, and he's just published a book that I saw with great interest when I saw it pop up on my social media. The title of the book is The Grindr Serial Killer, Stephen Port, British Criminals, Volume 2. And I covered Stephen Port, and I investigated his serial murder case in Reading, outside of London, East London, that these murders occurred fairly recently, I think in 2014 and 2015. But Alan's going to tell us a lot more about this case. And Alan, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Thanks for agreeing to the interview. I'm delighted that you're able to talk about this book that was just published this month, and it's available now on Amazon. But before we kind of get into the material, maybe you could tell the audience a little bit about your background.
Well, where do I start? I produce a radio show called The House of Mystery. It's on KCAA in LA, and it's on a few other syndicated stations as well. It covers true crime, history, paranormal, and conspiracy, but more from a logical point of view. We don't just jump off the edge of the world with this. And I've been writing true crime books for a while now, and I think Stephen Port book is the 9th book I have published.
Oh, congrats. Well,
yeah.
Great. So when is the House of Mystery? When is it a live show or is it recorded?
It's live originally, Monday to Friday, and then it's syndicated through the NBC West feed, so everywhere from Salt Lake down to Phoenix and over to the shore, so Seattle, Portland, Tacoma, and each station runs it at a different time depending on it's up to them how they do it. And it's on podcast after it airs on all the stations. It goes on a podcast form, and it's on most major, like iTunes and iHeart and Spotify, all
cool.
the major.
House of Mystery, Alan R. Warren. Just to let the audience know, we might be talking about some disturbing subjects. Stephen Port was convicted for killing 4 men, and under very gruesome circumstances. So just a warning to listeners not to, have this open while children or people who might be sensitive to this topic are around. So how did you get interested in the subject of Stephen Port?
Well, that's a funny thing. When we run our Friday show, I have a medium called Julie Sav, and she is out of the UK from America's Most Haunted, all that sort of series, and I went to college with her years ago, so we know each other, and she runs the Friday show. And the reason that brought this in was because a woman named Jackie Dennison, actually, who's a psychic over there, does a lot of these cold case files and stuff. And I've had her on the show, and I've known her for years. She used to have a TV show. And I know she mentioned the case, and she mentioned some other cases, too, that I've sort of followed up on. And that's how I kind of got interested in the case itself. And, of course, I went further than that, but that's what brought attention to me.
So she was just following the case as it was breaking kind of back fairly recently, really. I think he was arrested in 2017, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think that what it was she was actually friends with a family of a boy that was missing. And he ended up being part of the Moores murders. But, it's a totally different case. Uh-huh. But because of her fame, she got involved in this one. And I always like hearing stories. And when you hear an interesting story and some of the things that happened in this case, I thought, well, that's crazy. It's something we never catch on. And this publisher was doing a series of British crimes. And so I said to him, I've got some contacts and some information, and that's the other thing too, because I came across Cody Lockey, and he is an ex-felon, and in Manchester, and he had been a pen pal of Stephen Port.
Gotcha.
and so he was on documentary a long time ago, and so we connected. And over the time, I've known him and all that stuff. And then, being that I'm writing the book, I just said, hey, you know what would add a really nice touch would be if I kind of focused on 4 or 5 letters and kind of give people the feel of what Stephen is like from prison.
Gotcha. And you include those letters, so those are remarkable insight into Stephen Port, because he's very voluble. He writes these kind of long, detailed letters, whether people can take those with a grain of salt or not. It's very interesting.
Oh, totally. But the whole idea, I think, for me, is just to put it in so people can get a feel for what he talks like, how he acts, and how he represents himself. And again, you're right, grain of salt. You've got a serial killer that's in prison, and he's giving his kind of defense, in a sense, of what happened. And I think that's interesting, because you kind of,
No, it is very interesting.
Yeah, and you got to know. And I got several. I've got over a dozen 3 or 4 page letters from him. So I kind of put in the key ones where he talks about the case, or a little bit about his lifestyle and what it's like to be a prostitute, because that's kind of what Cody's angle was. Cody was talking to him about what it would be like to be a male prostitute, and what he should do and how he should do it, and what he should be careful of. And so Stephen was giving him guidelines on how to be a good male hooker.
Wow, fascinating. So maybe that's where we can start, is let's talk about these cases and how they came to the attention of the police, and how Stephen Port was involved in it.
Well, geez, the police seem to be not really interested. That's kind of it's a disappointing case for me, as far as the way the police handle it, because it took 4 or 5 bodies before they started paying attention, and even then they were almost forced to by one of the victims' 2 sisters, who kind of pushed it, and that's the only reason initially it started getting some sort of ground, because they were ignoring it, and it's really, really disappointing. I have to leave it at that. But the first victim was Anthony Walgate, and he was 23 years old. And
what was his background?
Well, he was a fashion student, and he was a young college student, wanted to be a fashion designer, and kind of doing that sort of thing. And he partied a lot, and at times, now this is kind of I got some references that at times he would go on the Sleepy Boys app. The Sleepy Boys app in the UK is a way of offering sex for money. Uh-huh. Some people call it escort, but it's kind of almost like our Grindr over here, or any of the other apps. You're going to have a mix of people that just want to meet, and some people that want sex, and some that offer massages, like whatever.
Gotcha. Is Sleepy Boy the #1 app in the UK? Is that correct?
It was. I don't know if it still is.
Okay.
When I was doing it, it was a really hot app. And you find that region to region, because I travel a lot with my jobs in life, and everywhere I go, and that's with any type of app and stuff, you'll find certain ones are more popular in certain areas than others, and Sleepy Boys was one of the big things, but they didn't. In America, we were dealing with Backpage, right, and Craigslist was more of the place that escorts advertised than on apps.
Back in the day before these apps. Now I think that Backpage is gone, right?
Yeah, Backpage was, and that was a bad mistake, because they really pushed against it, and finally the FBI closed them down. And it really it took away their tools, because now it's still going on. People are still advertising, and the reason they were catching, like in the human trafficking area, where people were being stolen and sold into sex slavery, they were using Backpage to advertise their sex slaves. And now we have no follow-up. The FBI used to be able to find victims and rescue them from their situation, which is different than what this was, Stephen Port and this, but in that situation, but because of things like Stephen Port, FBI takes down Backpage and Craigslist as far as all the escort services. So now the escort services are going on, but more blindly. They have no follow-up to it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So this first victim, Anthony Walgate, he was using Sleepy Boy. He was making money as a male escort, and then he just kind of disappeared. Correct?
Yeah. Actually, but with Walgate, he was the one that what happened was he went out drinking, and he was going to meet someone, and he told his friend in an email, a girlfriend, and said, "Hey, I'm going to meet this guy. He's offering me £800 to spend the night with him." And so I just thought I'd tell you in case I get killed. And he did it for a joke. Like he wasn't serious. They were just bantering. And he ended up not coming home. And on the 19th, early in the morning, 2 days later, what happened was Stephen Port actually called 999, which is their version of 911, and reported that there was a body in the front stairway of his apartment building. And it looked like the guy was overdosed or drunk or maybe even dead. He didn't know. And so that call was kind of weird when you listen to it. That was really unique.
So that audio is available.
Yeah, the audio is available, and I think I put the link in the book for people if they wanted to find it, and I might even have transcribed it. I can't remember. I know I did at the time because it's a little bit fuzzy, and I want to get all the correct wording out. But he actually called them and said he saw this body on his way to work. and they called back a few times. The police came, found Anthony Walgate's body, slumped. He was overdosed. There was a needle beside the body and some little vials, too. And they had the GHB, which is known as the date rape drug over in America here.
Right. So the GHB was found on him, gamma hydroxybutyric acid, right? So that, and known by a variety of different names.
Yeah. And it depends on the formulation. And now in England, it's huge. Even in parts of Canada and even parts of the States. In the gay community, it's a really big drug to mix with other drugs.
I didn't know that. So
yeah,
what other drugs are they commonly mixing that with?
Well, in their community in the UK, it was with crystal meth, which, wow.
That sounds interesting.
But what it does is it enhances the high that you have, and it makes it last longer. So a lot of people can take it to enhance the drug they're using and give it a longer lasting time. So, and they started calling it party and play, P&P. And so when they talk on the different apps and sex sites and stuff, and meeting sites even, people will say like P&P or party and play. And what it is, we like to do these drugs and get high. And there's actually groups on the Sleepy Boy and Grindr app that they have parties. So you can set up a party. Let's say you want to get together. You set up a party on Grindr, let's say, and you can invite anybody, and it's a chemsex party or a party and play.
Wow.
And you name the place and the time. You have to be there. Let's say it should be at 9 o'clock, and the doors close at 10. So basically, everyone gets there between 9 and 10. The doors get locked. Everyone gets naked. They all do this drug, and then they have sex and some of the parties last days.
Remarkable. Wow. That's like the bathhouses back when I lived in San Francisco, like those kind of.
Well, and that's actually, it's what it is. It's kind of the modern day bathhouse.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Is what it is.
Facilitated by an app, right? Or facilitated by these. Gotcha.
It's just, it's a good way of, hey, let's open a bathhouse tonight.
Oh,
in a way.
interesting.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of it just goes with the modern day of technology of how we connect and do everything instantly.
Right.
It's And
that's one of the interesting things about this case is how all of these modern elements of these new drugs and these websites kind of coalesced into this serial killing case.
Yeah. Well, it gives, you know what it is you see, the younger you are, the more you're into this, and it's the new way, and it's just like it was when we were younger. We all find the new way, and we do it. But the problem with you when you're young is you don't have the knowledge. Like you're able to understand the app and the technology, and you can do all that, but you don't have the knowledge of being alive for a long time. So you don't realize the things you can get caught up in, or the things that could actually end up hurting you. You know, it's that old thing, because so that's kind of the downfall. It's all new and exciting to people in the 20s, but it opens them up to a lot of things that they're not aware of.
Right, and that was kind of there was Stephen Port. He was much older than his victims, right? He was a good 20 years older, much more experienced.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, he was. I think 41 by the time they caught him.
And his
trying to remember.
20s, yeah, early 20s.
Yeah, so he was, and what he did was, of course, you know, he was thin and tall, and he wore a wig.
So he tried to look younger, more, yeah.
Yeah, he had this blonde wig, and I put that picture in there, and it looks pretty good. It doesn't look like a fake wig, but when you look at him on the cover, that's him when he's arrested without the wig, as compared to inside the book when he's taking his picture for Grindr. It's all
totally different.
He had a good hairpiece, actually, and
but he got in trouble before he got arrested. He had been in court already over the Wallgate case, right?
Yeah. He got, you see, because this Anthony Wallgate, what he did was so they found the body, did all this, you know, research, and come back and talk to him, and he sort of said, no, I don't know who he is, I just saw him on the way out to work. But then when the police checked Anthony Wallgate's phone, they found out that he was actually in contact, and the two of them had planned to meet, and were going to, you know. So then when they came back with that, you know, of course he had to admit, yeah. But what he said that the two of them got together, they had sex, spent the night, and then he went to work, come back, and then they had sex again, but this time Wallgate did a big pile of more GHB and drugs. And then he said he went and showered, and when he came back from the shower, Wallgate was shaking like a snake and freaking out and doing all this, and he didn't know what to do, so he dragged the body out on the front and called 999, and that's why he did it. And they believed him.
They believed him, right?
Yeah, they give him. He had to wear. He got a fine. He got a probation, and he had to wear one of those little leg braces for a while. But it was really kind of a slap on the wrist. Right.
So I mean, they believed his story, and then probably within the same year or something, a year or two, there's more bodies of young men found nearby his apartment, right?
Oh yeah, it was really just 3 months later that they started finding it, and this woman, Barbara Dunham, she's 67 at the time, and she'd been walking her dog. His building was really across from a park, and this park was part of a church that was really old church that they had kind of redone in parts, and it wasn't like a functioning church. It was more of a tourist place. And it had an old graveyard and fencing, and it was kind of kept up. She would walk her dog there every morning. And it was just in August, I think the 20th, 2014, she was walking her dog, and she saw this man just sitting upright, leaning against the brick fence outside of the church. And she let her dog go, and he was doing his thing. And she went over and started talking to the guy, and he didn't move or didn't answer. So then she tapped him on the foot, and he still didn't do it. And so she put her hand down and felt him, and he was cold. So she reported it to the police, and that was Gabriel Kabari. Now, he was only a 22-year-old, and he was recently relocated from Slavia. So he hadn't been in the community that long, and he was fairly young. And again, he was found with vials of GHB and some other powder, and also the needle and a few other syringe, a few other things around. So the police took it to it as an overdose.
Gotcha.
They just said, well, it's just, Now that park was known as a cruisy park for gays as well. Men would go there and meet and fool around, and a lot of drug addicts would go there and do drugs. It was a park, that kind of park.
So it would be expected that if there, that wasn't unexpected to find an overdose body there. Wasn't out of
No, not at all. It happened a lot.
Gotcha.
In fact, several. And in fact, what I can tell you is later, after these crimes were all proven to be Stephen Port, they have to reopen 68 drug overdoses in that park that year.
It's amazing.
So we're talking, there's a lot of drug activity going on in that park. If they had 68 overdoses in that year period.
It's incredible. Yeah. So
like
it shows that Port was very clever, very cunning in kind of making this Kovari death look like an overdose instead of murder.
Totally. It just fit right in. I think what happened was with Walgate, the first one, it was kind of a learning curve. He saw how the police acted and what he could get away with, and then he used the park with Kovari, which seemed to be a smarter way of doing it because that's where it was happening all the time. Bodies were turning up a lot. There was a lot of drug activity, sex activity. Not too hard to fit in,
Right.
And then it happened again.
Right.
And that was a short time after they found Daniel Whitworth. Now, he was 21. He was from Kent, so he was from the UK. He wasn't it's a smaller suburb compared to being in London in this part of town, in the city. So that was, and it was the same thing. And it was the same dog walker that found this body.
Wow.
I mean, that must have been, that's why I think that chapter I called, "Oh no, not another one."
Right.
Because, she's out 2 and 2. It was a matter of within 2 months. 2 bodies.
So the next Daniel Whitworth. But the Daniel Whitworth was different because he had a suicide note.
Yeah, and that's where, this is the real question in the case, because, okay, you've got a third body here, and Whitworth had this suicide note, and I put a copy in it and I transcribed it because it's a little rough. And basically it's saying that him and Kovari, the body from before, a month before, were having sex a month before and doing GHB and drugs, and Kovari overdosed and died. So now Whitworth, a month later, was feeling so guilty about it he couldn't live anymore. So he was killing himself, and he was sorry to the family and blah, blah, blah. Like, it was that kind of a note. Mm-hmm. But the weird part was that then it was like a PS, or by the way, BT is what they called it. And he goes, now the guy you saw me with last night has nothing to do with this.
Wow. Just
so you know.
Right.
And so, you kind of go, well, now that's completely stupid.
Right, like why would somebody write that in a suicide note?
Yeah, and you're like, oh, don't worry about the guy if you see, and it's like, what are you talking about? I mean, like the guy you were with. So that kind of was freaky. But the thing is, the police came, got the body, same thing, did nothing, even with that note. And even when they asked Whitworth's parents and showed them the note, even the mother said, absolutely, that's not his note. That's not his handwriting. And the dad said he couldn't tell. But that's kind of, dads are that way, sometimes. Right. But it absolutely wasn't his. But, they did nothing. They just sort of
they put it up. Those two, right? They accepted those 2 deaths. And
yeah, that's the turning point, and that's what's crazy is because the police still, at that point, even with a note, you see, because what I mean is because they emphasized that none of the deaths in the park had anything to do with each other.
Right.
So publicly they were saying the Kovari, Whitworth, and Walgate deaths all had nothing to do with each other. There was nothing that tied them together. But they had the suicide note with Whitworth mentioning Kavari. So that in itself ties those two people together.
Right. Yeah, so the police are not really doing any investigating at all.
No, and because of the way, and when it all turned out, 17 of those cops got reprimanded.
Gotcha. And there's still the inquest that hasn't even come back yet, so it's supposed to...
No.
They're doing a full investigation, and they're taking their time, it seems like, because I've been waiting for that inquest to come back and look in. But the court cases are back, and those are to tell a story, yeah. So you've got 3 deaths... Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. Please continue.
No, I was going to say, so that's kind of, we know that this is a bad situation. And then along comes Jack Taylor, 25 years old, forklift operator. And same thing. And that was only September. So you got to think, the very first one back 4 deaths ago was only June. So he was becoming very nonchalant about killing. It obviously didn't bother him anymore. He was getting into it, so to speak. And so the same thing. They met on an app, picked each other up, met each other, walked back to Port's apartment, and had sex. And Jack Taylor was found in the same park. I think maybe a day later. He was on the same fence as the other 2 boys, but he was on the other side of the fence.
Gotcha.
So they found him, same thing. They put him in as a drug overdose. Right. And it was the same way. Found him with GHB and some pills and a syringe. So it was just put as a overdose. And but that was the turning part, because Jack Taylor's 2 sisters didn't believe it. And when they started looking back through the cases, they spotted and they found out about the note from Whitworth about Kavari, and then they went to the inspectors and questioned them and said, why would you say none of them have anything to do with each other, and the note mentions 2 names that are both dead. They have to have something to do with each other. So and what they did was they kind of poo-pooed them, and then eventually they said, well, look, we'll take you, so we'll take you and we'll go through the CT footage. So they went through, and most of London, for the people that don't realize this, is under film. They've got more cameras around the city of London than probably all of the United States. It's completely watched.
Super surveillance, CCTV. Right?
Yeah. And their surveillance also is, they've got the software that they can put a prisoner's face into the system, and the software will look for that face. And if you walk into the camera, that person's with that face, it'll notify the police, this person's on this street.
Wow. Yeah,
that's
super sophisticated.
Yeah. And that's scary for some people, but it seems to be working for them. So I don't get into the comment. So when they went through the footage, then they all of a sudden found Jack Taylor walking home with Port to Port's place, and then they started to investigate, and they found that the apps and the meetings, and then it all started falling apart for Port. And thanks to the pressure of the sisters that they put on it, and they also went to like the gay magazine Pink News, and Pink News did big articles warning everybody about a serial killer on the loose in the gay community, and so it all sort of broke loose then, all of a sudden.
So that was it, and they brought him in. There are the detailed an outline with the police, not confession, but their investigation includes video of Port just denying constantly that whether he knew them or whether he was involved. He just denied.
Yeah, all the way through. He did it. I mean, there was no doubt. And even in his letters, when you look, and he talks about the case, he every one of them, he had this defense of every single one of these guys. Now he admits to taking home and sleeping with, but every single one of them overdosed themselves. he would never do drugs. He would never. And meanwhile, you look at the pictures of his apartment. He's got more drugs around. He was giving these people the GHB. Then he would inject poppers into their arms.
Wow.
So poppers is what you take when you have heart problems.
Right. Amyl nitrate.
Yeah, and it opens up all the the little vessels and stuff, and it's used in the gay community because it makes it easier. You're relaxed and you can have sex, and it's easier. It's not, and it's apparently supposed to make it last longer. So people will mix that. Those two drugs are quite popular, along with crystal meth. So you get these chemsex parties. So
and didn't porn have just GHB sitting on the coffee table, like massive amounts of that?
Yeah, he had massive amounts. In fact, the picture I put, he had so many drugs in his place, and even when the police came in and out, even with the first one, they were all there, and they didn't put two and two together. And that's sort of, and I think the reason was because they didn't really care. The officers that dealt with this didn't really take the time to really have a look. They didn't associate anything, whether it's anti-gay or if it's just they're lazy.
They may not have understood too. They may not have understood the whole GHB chemsex culture, party and party culture.
Totally. I agree with all that. It could have been any of it. I'm not putting a particular blame on a person or a reason, but overall, they really kind of dropped the ball. They just sort of let this happen. And again, like I said, now they're reopening 68 other overdoses that happened in that same park because, how do we know how many he really killed and how many didn't? I don't want to get conspiratorial there, but that whole
that's
couple
a good
of years...
point. I mean, how many other people did they kill or they've made if their bodies might be somewhere else, right?
Right. I mean, because if they didn't actually... And even when the ones that they did have, they had the two with the note and then Jack Taylor. And Jack Taylor's sisters pulled it. They get the film footage to prove it, then the app. So these they sort of are forced to deal with. But of the other 68, who knows? That there was all the same timing. He was there. All these people are dying. Maybe it was just another handful. Maybe it was just one. Who knows?
Well, that's a scary thought that he might have been a very learned, competent serial killer, killing tons of people.
Oh, yeah, totally. And you don't know where, if someone's doing it, they're doing it, there's so many theories out there. Do killers stop? Do they start? Do they take time off? Right. I hear all sorts of stuff from people, and I don't know that we really have an answer. We have a generalization, but who knows when he was starting and when he stopped and what he was thinking and how many he did. And the police, obviously, just from this little touch of these 5 bodies, didn't really investigate any of them, including the other 68. They were all just ruled off. And why I say that, too, is because almost every one of these cases were closed within 2 days.
Wow, that's incredible. Just done.
Yeah. So,
no more investigation, no nothing.
Yeah, pick up the body, print, okay, right then. And then 2 days later, they're signing off.
So that was, as report goes, that he was successful in tricking the police, but he was also very clever by, he took on a fake name, John Luck, and befriended a boyfriend of Gabriel Kovari to keep an eye on the investigation to make sure that they didn't think it was murder. So he was using the internet cleverly.
Oh, totally. And he was another one of those guys that had a real persona. Like even his Facebook, I've got the link, and it was still up when I wrote it. And even that, he was like, he's a chef, and he was he had all these great jobs. But the truth was, the good jobs that he did have, he got fired from after Anthony Walgate, because as soon as he got arrested for that indecency, they fired him. So he was working at a bus stop, like a Greyhound bus stop. He was working in one of their in the kitchen.
Gotcha. Right. So
it wasn't like what he made it to be. He made it sound
But he was on a TV show. He was on like a competitive cooking show too, though, right?
Yeah, Celebrity Chef UK, and he was in the top 3. And they made over 100 burgers or some sort of special food for a lot of homeless people, and it was a big show. And he did well in it. And again, but that was kind of pre all of this stuff, as far as we know.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I got into Stephen Port was because I was investigating similar cases of men who went out at bars or either had been exposed to GHB being found in water. It's known as the smiley face killers. But those are similar to Port because people don't identify these men found in water as murders. They're typified as accidental drownings. And so they're not investigated either, much like the Port cases. And my basic conclusion is that these are actually murders, not accidental drownings happening all over the world. A lot in the UK. They just had one close in London, close to Port, with this young man. I can't remember his name, but that was really what sparked my interest in Port. And they actually had another guy similar. His name was Bruce MacArthur, and he was in Toronto. And the police said there wasn't a serial killer, but all these men disappeared. He had a typology. He liked kind of these certain types of men. And he was on these dating apps. He was gay. He was on all kinds of Grindr and all this stuff. And they finally, the police, when they arrested Bruce MacArthur, it was because he had a man tied up. He liked like kind of like bondage, BDSM. He had a man tied up in his bed. And, so they found out that he at least killed 8 people. I don't know how many. So.
Yeah, it's tough. And then he was putting the bodies in the planters. Because he was...
Exactly. Yeah. So somewhat similar to Port, serial killer, gay community, people are disappearing. So it's these things do happen.
I think the most annoying thing is that it's still when you get because even and we're talking even in Canada, in a civilized country, probably much more civilized than the U.S. And you've got the Highway of Tears, where all the native girls are going missing, and you've got that MacArthur, and you had Luca Magnotta before that, where he was eating people, and so, but the whole thing is, unfortunately, policing in general, minorities like that, and gays, minorities, prostitutes, things like that, they don't invest a lot of time in.
That's what it seems like, yeah. I mean, I don't think they understand them, to be honest with you. They don't understand the drug sex, the chem sex, the GHB. I mean, when I was reading this stuff.
I agree. I know it totally. Yeah. I watch these things even on Netflix, and you see that, it's made a real negative. If you've ever watched The Staircase on Netflix.
Right, Peterson, yeah.
With the owl thing, and Michael Peterson, because he had sex with men on the side. The whole court case was all built around him being a cheater and into male sex. And this is why, he must have killed his wife. It was really kind of how they presumed it. And anybody that's against that lifestyle or that notion jumped on it. And it was really easy to do that, even though they knew that the wife had known for years and she didn't care.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah. So it wasn't
it's easier to demon. Yeah, if you demonize your victim, then it's not as important.
Good point. Excellent point. Excellent.
And that's the sad part of it, because that's where you find equality is really lacking.
Excellent. That's a great point.
In case murder and sex and all, that whole thing, it's not really. There's not compassion for someone if you think that she was just a prostitute.
They're not as equal, not as important.
Yeah. Right. Or he's gay, there's still that going on, and I'm not complaining, I'm just saying that that's going on factually, and I think that it's just going to take more time to grow out of this, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, those are excellent points. I mean, the court case, when they found their conclusions and convicted Port, he was involved in drugging other people who didn't die. So the other people survived Port, right?
Exactly, and this is sort of it adds to the case of how many of those 68 other people were involved with him. because he had, we had that the Muslim boy that testified about being assaulted and drugged by Port, and he got away.
He made it out, right?
Right. So I mean, now you have to kind of like, well, where does this go then? Like, what? It kind of shows you that he didn't just do these 5. He was assaulting people, and some died, some didn't, and we don't know how many of them. And to be honest, I don't think we'll ever know.
Yeah, it's a shame too, because a lot of those GHB inhibits memory. So there could be people out there who don't even know, like something bad happened, they woke up, and it's kind of similar to a lot of these smiley face killer cases where people would come out, they just had something about this kid Dakota James in Pittsburgh, didn't know where he was. There's all people who emulate GHB poisoning where they're unsteady, incoherent, So if he had this massive storehouse of GHB, it's probably because he's using a lot of it, right? So he might have got away with a lot of stuff. You don't have big old canister after canister of GHB because you're storing it. It's because you're using it, I would assume.
Yeah, and not only that, well, we know that he was working these parties as well. So these people that would host a GHB party or chemsex party would basically hire him to come, and he would do drugs and bring drugs, and he would get sex and money, and he would be they call them hosts. So these people doing a party would have a couple of hosts, and these hosts so he would come and he supplies the drugs, and he can also bring people, and so it ends up being a big party. Everybody pays to get in for this party, so the people hosting it make money, and it's sort of a plan. It's all worked out, This is all down to a little bit of a science here. So
did you find his stories of the chemsex and stuff credible? He had been an escort for a decade or something like that too, right?
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. I think he sounded pretty reasonable with most of them, and from others I've interviewed and others I've talked to, and being involved in the community and areas, it sounds pretty logistical. Like the way he describes it and writes it, he's pretty dead on what goes on and how it goes on and what they do and everything. So, the very least he went to these parties.
Right, and he seemed to know about the drinks. When I read the letters that he was writing with Cody Lachey, he's like, never accept a drink here. Like he knew that was the insider knowledge, right? That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, it's kind of like I said, it's he's definitely involved in it. He knows the community. He knows what's going on in life, and he's at least been to the parties, been to the hookups, and he's been around them. So whether he hosted and supplied drugs or not, I don't know. He says he did. I don't know why he would have to lie about that. If anything, by him saying that, it makes him sound a little worse,
Well, his victims fit the profile of the smiley face killer victims. They're all basically look the same, like Stephen Port's. Younger, skinnier, referred to in the community as a twink that you write about in your book.
For sure. He was really into the twink, the bottom, the femme sort of look. He liked a feminine guy. He that was his. I guess we all have our tastes, and that was his taste. And he took advantage of it, and he took advantage of a lot of them that were young. Whether he was doing sex, I don't know that. He obviously overdosed them with the GHB. They'd pass out. Mm. So how many of them actually did those drugs and was into that before they met him? We can't tell.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
The Kavari guy, I don't think so. 22, and he's from Slovakia. Just been there a year. I don't think he was a big person in the community, so to speak. I don't think he was that involved yet.
Right. And Taylor, the sister said, "There's no way he drug overdose because he doesn't use drugs." Right? That's what made them suspicious.
Right, and that's well, and Jack Taylor was that victim, and he was really kind of the odd man out in a way because he was 25. He was kind of butch as far as the guys go. Forklift driver. He was a little bit more of a more masculine of a man, so it didn't really fit the profile. But for some reason, they connected on the app, and it was going to work. Whether maybe Port was just in the need to get someone, to kill someone.
Gotcha. But what's interesting about Port when I was researching him is he was on every app every male gay app there was out there, like names I didn't even know. But he seemed to have all these different profiles under different names. Do you come across that?
Yeah, and I'll tell you that is common. It's common for the guys to have different profiles in different apps, but not so much to kill people. What it is because, they're attracted to different types of people. And, you have one profile and you put that you like, bears or you like hair or you don't. Like you put the different features and you put yours. They might not like you in general. So you change your profile so that it makes those people think you're attractive. So you change your profile, your name and all that, and some of your pictures to make it look like it's a different sort of person that would more fit what they're looking for. So it's kind of a game. So that's not totally unusual because it's not like they charge you for it most of the apps.
Interesting. When that inquest is published, what do you think that they're going to find out? Do you think they'll find out that there are more murders attributable to Port, or do you think that people will be fired or censured, or do you have any thoughts about what might happen?
Yeah, you'll definitely see some people punished over it. It'll all be street cops. It won't be anybody important. It won't be anybody at a high level because that's just how it goes. They'll throw the people under the bus that were initially charged with the investigation because that was their responsibility. You might see a sergeant or a corporal that takes a hit for it. You'll see some people relieved of their job, and it'll just kind of wash away. I doubt that they'll come out with any of the new victims because, man, how do you start back? How do you go back now? 4 or 5 years, and what do you do? Okay, you got 68 names. You start going to the families, and of course, now, and I don't want to sound cold-hearted, but you go to a family. Now that this has all come out, if could you imagine you're a parent and you have a child that was killed, a 19-year-old or 20, or overdosed, and then all of a sudden the cops come back 4 or 5 years later and say, well, did he know Port? Did he go to parties? Was he on apps? And you're kind of like, a lot of the parents are going to automatically think that Port did it or Port could have killed her. Right. And they're going to like that better than if their son was just out and overdosed in the park.
Good point. That's a good point.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, that's being human. That's being realistic.
Sure.
And I think that, I would want that. I wouldn't want, not that I want my kid killed, but I wouldn't, you know what I'm saying?
Of course, no, absolutely.
It's a hard thing to deal with. And each person has to really be honest, even not saying it out loud, but think about it for a minute. Cops show up after you've heard about a mass murder like this, 4 or 5 years later, and then starts questioning you about your kid's contact with this person, if there was, or with the gay community, or with the apps. Man, that's got to be... And they're not really going to come up with an answer, because how could they?
Right.
Right? If Port doesn't admit to other victims, if he won't, it's actually write down a list and say this is what I did or who I picked up, they're not going to really know. They're going to have guesswork. So you'll see that whole thing just kind of go under.
Wow.
Yeah, they'll punish some people publicly and let some cops go, and it was terrible, and they might even have to pay out the families a little bit of money.
Right. So one of the families' tiers are suing the police, correct?
Right. Yeah, and they have a very good case, and rightfully so. I think that that's why some cops will pay for it.
Right. They did the police's job. They were the ones who asked who that other guy was with their brother in the CCTV.
They pushed it. Like the cops would just kind of look. What would you be thinking? Right. You find a body. There's a suicide note, and it's because the guy overdosed the body you found a month before.
Right.
and you just kind of don't follow up, close it as an overdose, and walk away. That seems a bit bizarre to me.
That's a shame.
That one particular instance, how can you just say, well, I don't know, how can you, so that's where you're going to see those investigators are the ones that will be thrown under the bus.
Right, the initial
right there. Right? Yeah, that little group right there, because they can't really excuse them for that. So they'll throw them out. It was just inadequate, incompetent cops, bad police work. Sorry, we fired them, and there'd be a little bit of a, a little bit of kerfuffle for a month, and then Donald Trump will do something, and they'll forget.
Right, in the news, it'll be off the news, right? Everybody will forget. I'll be looking for the inquest. Alan, we are at the 50-minute mark. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd like to share, or anything you'd like to add?
No, I think it's great. I appreciate being on, and it's a good book. It's a short read book, so it's not, you see the size of it. It's part of a series. If it does well, they'll ask me to expand it, and it'll be a full novel and I'll have the full trial included, and I'll have 12 letters included that weren't in this one. So we'll see.
Excellent. So where can people find the book?
As far as it's, of course, on Amazon. It's in paperback and ebook right now. It's being made into audio, and then that'll be a couple of weeks. Then, of course, in the States, it's in Barnes & Noble and Indie, and in Canada, it's in Chapters.
Excellent. Alan R. Warren, again, the title of the book, get back to it, is The Grindr Serial Killer, Stephen Port, British Criminals, Volume 2. Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you.
All right, cool, man. That was great, man. Great interview. Went super fast.
Oh.
Great book, too, by the way. So, excellent book. So, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Yeah, not a problem. I enjoy doing it.
Good. Well, I hope it does great. I hope it does great, and you expand on it. I'd love to read any other information you put in.